I was at the Simracing Expo in Dortmund, Germany this year, and here's everything I tried out that I thought was cool while I was there. Firstly, the two new big games I have separate videos on, both AC Rally and Project Motor Racing, so check those out if you want to see my first thoughts playing both of those. Link will be in the description. Heusinkveld were at the expo, and I've wanted to have a go on this wheel ever since I saw it get shown off at the Chicago Expo a few months ago, and I must say, the feeling of this in your hands is really nice. It's a bit of a different design, but it feels really good. The button placement is a little odd though. You see those button clusters on the top right and left. There is a little nub in the middle of those, so you can feel for the nub and then you know exactly where your thumb is to press the other buttons. However, it is a little bit less intuitive and easy compared to more traditional button layouts, and it feels like a bit of wasted space in the middle. It looks like it's a screen, but it's not. It's just the logo and the rev bar. I'm not fussed about having a screen on a wheel personally, but even then it feels like wasted space because there's basically nothing going on there other than the rev lights. So that's a little odd, but as an interesting concept of wheel design, it's very nice to use. This is something a bit different. This is a rally sim, complete with motion and everything, built into a real Peugeot 205 rally car. It did start off live as a real car, and they've modified it quite considerably to make it work with everything they need to put inside of it. Here's the interior. Unfortunately, as you can see, the FOV is wrong, but nonetheless, this was quite a cool experience to be in. The doors close beside you and everything, and you're in darkness as you drive. I was in the co-driver's seat, as you can see for this one, and yeah, really cool. They had SRP pedals. I think it was a Camus wheelbase, obviously a DDU there as well, and Stream Deck and RGB keyboard, of course, because that's the true rally experience, right? But this was really cool and something interesting other than just new tech at the expo. New tech was of course here in abundance though. Simucube were there with their newly announced Simucube 3 wheelbases. In this clip I'm using the Simucube 3 Sport with AC Rally with one of their new round rims. I must say, for this particular rig, the FFB seemed quite low, so I wasn't getting a lot of feedback, but that might also be, AC Rally or it just being turned down. I did have a much stronger experience with the Simucube 3 Pro on their iRacing rig though. This rig was set up with a lot higher force feedback. It is the Pro model, so that's to be expected, and it was also using their Savu Pro steering wheel, which felt very nice in my hands, by the way. This rig was set up with a lot higher force feedback, and I even had to take my hands off the wheel for a spin because it was just going to completely snap on me when that happened. So obviously diminishing returns with these sorts of wheelbases. Is the Simucube 3 going to be a big upgrade from the Simucube 2? Probably not, but it certainly felt very good, and if you're in the market for a high-end wheelbase, it's certainly no worse than the Simucube 2 was, that is for sure. Similarly, Fanatec had both their Podium pedals and Podium direct drive base on show and available to use on a rig as well, which I tried on AC Evo with a BMW M4, and that wheelbase, by the way, was cranked up. They wanted to show you just how strong it could get, and it really was. I could feel it in my arms after, 3 or 4 laps in the M4, whatever it was. So no shortage of strength in that wheelbase, and the pedals in my limited testing felt pretty nice as well. Was sort of trying to trail brake in the GT3 around Nürburgring GP in AC Evo, and it felt nice from my limited testing. This was a new rim from Soelpec, the Terra LX they're calling it, and it does seem rather similar to the Spectra LT, their previous non-screen wheel that they had. However, there is one additional rotary encoder in the center part of the wheel, and I think fewer buttons by the looks of it. Just normal buttons. So this is slightly different. A very light wheel, by the way, very light indeed, and I'm going to assume this perhaps falls in at a lower price point than the Spectra LT, based on just having a few fewer buttons. But there's not a lot of compromise there because you still have 4 rotary encoders, and by the way, those thumb encoders, much like the other Soelpec wheels, if you press them in, then they change to 2 different inputs. So it's an up-down thumb encoder, but with essentially 2 up-down thumb encoders on it, because you can press that button to toggle between 2 different sets of up and down. I got to try the VRS R295 wheel rim, which was shown as a prototype last year at the expo, and then this year I was able to actually try it for real. And this rim felt quite nice. I like the position of the thumb encoders and buttons. It's quite a light rim, there's not a lot to it, which is good. And it did feel a little bit on the cheaper side, not in a bad way. You know, it was solid build quality still, but compared to the really high-end wheels like the one we just saw in this video, it definitely felt like a step down, but the price reflects that. I think it's a really good deal for the price that it is, at least compared to other rims on the market with similar features and button layout. Also at the VRS booth, I was able to try the VPG Porsche 911 Cup Replica rim, which did feel very nice. This is a sort of rim along with their Mustang rim that I look at it and think it looks big and bulky, honestly, compared to like the slim, sleek, typical sim racing rim. But I must say, when driving with it, I didn't notice any of that. It is a light rim. I feel like it doesn't look like it, but it is. And yeah, the driving feel was absolutely fine. I feel like it's a similar shape, this rim, to the Fanatec BMW M4 rim. But I find for that rim, my hands sit a little too high up. It's almost like I'm at 10 and 2. It's not, but it kind of feels like it. This rim, not so much. It feels like I am actually at 9 and 3, and it feels a lot more natural to use as a result. Probably not enough buttons on this for me personally, because, you know, being a real car replica rim, it kind of lacks some of the extensive functionality that other sim racing oriented wheels have, but it seems very nice nonetheless. And if you're the type that wants something that matches a real car, obviously this is really cool. I was also able to use Simagic's new Alpha Evo wheelbase. I'm not sure which exact model this was, however I will say it wasn't set up super strong on the FFB or anything like that, and it was paired with their P1000 pedal set. Unfortunately, it was using AC, Assetto Corsa. All the rigs at this booth were, which is fine, but I don't drive Assetto Corsa much, so I knew that I wouldn't get much of a reference point with this compared to some of the other things I tried. However, I will say that after a bunch of, sectors, I suppose, of the Nordschleife, I began to understand the car a bit more through the wheel and was able to sort of push with a bit more confidence until I eventually binned it, but that's probably just a skill issue. So the wheelbase seemed nice enough that I was able to pick it up relatively quickly despite not driving the game very often. I didn't try this rim on a wheelbase myself, but I did get to see it and hold it. This is Cube Control's new Astra wheel rim, and this falls, I feel, in a similar category to the VRS R295 rim that we saw earlier in the video, because this has a pretty competitive price point for the features it offers, at least even compared to other Cube Controls wheels, I feel. So you have one thumb encoder on each side, which is one less than the R295. However, you do have the up and down metal switches next to the two buttons on the top, so that's another up and down feature at least, along with two funky switches and two rotary encoders and clutch paddles. So quite a lot of features and a pretty aggressive price point. Obviously no screen, but that's to be expected at that price point. And I don't know about you, but I think this new design from Cube Controls, which I feel like is somewhat more aggressive, more angular than their older rims like you see in the background, I think I like it more. I think this is, for me, this is the best looking Cube Controls wheel, so it's quite an interesting one to me. I did get to try these rims, however. This is the Delta Pulse and Delta Pro from BavarianSimTec. There is also a Simucube variant of the Delta Pro that is part of the Simucube 3 announcement, along with all those other rims. But I tried the Delta Pro on a rig here, and these rims feel fantastic. Firstly, those 5 buttons where your thumb is, along with 2 rotary encoders, that's so convenient, such good design in my opinion. And then on top of that, you've got the 2 funky switches and the 4 rotaries on the front as well. So that's really nice. And of course, 3 paddles, clutch, and 2 normal paddles on each side as well, so very full featured. I don't like the way the screen bulges out on the Pro. Personally, I think that looks rather ugly in my opinion. However, I don't like screens on wheels anyway, so Delta Pulse is what I would want, and that doesn't have that problem anyway. And that's become now my dream rim. They're both very expensive for what they are, like other BavarianSimTec wheels. I think if I wanted a screen, I would still be looking at the Pro V2 because I like that design better. But for without a screen, I think this new Delta Pulse looks way nicer than the Alpha did. So this is now my dream wheel rim. It's very nice, but very expensive. Those are my highlights from Simracing Expo this year. As I mentioned, be sure to check out my videos on both AC Rally and Project Motor Racing on your screen now, and I'll catch you in the next one.